Department of Justice announces that they are investigating the City of Lexington, Mississippi, and the Lexington Police Department based on civil rights allegations. Let's watch.
My name is Kristen Clark, the Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division at the U.S. Department of Justice. I am joined by U.S. Attorney Todd Gee, who serves here in the Southern District of Mississippi. Today, the Justice Department is announcing the opening of a civil rights investigation into the City of Lexington, Mississippi, and the Lexington Police Department to determine whether they engage in a pattern or practice of conduct that violates the Constitution and federal law. Specifically, we will assess whether the police department uses excessive force, violates people's civil and constitutional rights during stops, searches, and arrests, engages in discriminatory policing, or violates people's civil rights to engage in speech or conduct protected by the Constitution. Lexington is a small community with approximately 1,600 residents and a police department with fewer than 10 officers. And in this regard, it is not unique. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, half of America's police departments have 10 officers or fewer. The Justice Department is committed to protecting the constitutional rights of all Americans, whether they live in small towns or big cities. Residents of rural and underserved communities have the same rights and deserve the same protection as people who live in downtown Baltimore or the suburbs of Louisville. Police misconduct in smaller communities may not always garner national attention, but rest assured the Justice Department is watching. No city, no town, no law enforcement agency is too big or too small to evade our enforcement of the constitutional rights every American enjoys. Small and mid-sized police departments cannot and must not be allowed to violate people's civil rights with impunity. Just recently, in August, we obtained guilty pleas from 5 deputy sheriffs in nearby Rankin County and 1 police officer from Richland, Mississippi, for beating and torturing 2 black men. Accountability applies everywhere, and we hope this investigation makes crystal clear our commitment to ensuring constitutional policing in every corner of our country. Based on an extensive review of information that is publicly available and that we received from stakeholders, we conclude there is significant justification to open this investigation now. For example, there are allegations that Lexington police officers have stopped, searched, and arrested people without justification, used force against people who did not pose a threat to officers, used illegal roadblocks targeted at black drivers, and retaliated against people exercising their right to question police action or record police activity. The police department also appears to have violated First Amendment rights by routinely arresting people merely for using profanity. Community members have offered troubling accounts of how these alleged practices have affected their lives, of injuries caused by gratuitous and excessive force, of alleged sexual assault, and of repression and reprisal. We know, too, that these allegations arise in a community that has already faced racial discrimination and economic disadvantage. About 86% of Lexington's population is black, and it has a poverty rate approaching 30%. But it also has a storied place in civil rights history. In the face of violent opposition, residents persisted in registering and exercising their right to vote, and in 1967 elected the first black representative to the Mississippi State Legislature in the 20th century. who later went on to become Speaker of the Mississippi House. Underserved communities in the Deep South will not be left behind as we carry out our work to ensure constitutional policing across America. To be clear, this is the beginning of the investigation, not the end. We have drawn no conclusions. We are committed to conducting an independent, comprehensive, and fair investigation. We will review incident reports, body-worn camera footage, and other information regarding the interactions of Lexington police officers with the public. We'll also review the police department's policies and training materials and other internal documents to understand how the department operates. We will meet with police officers and observe them during their shifts to learn about their practices. And we will meet with members of the community every step of the way to hear about their experiences with the department. As in every investigation, we will follow the facts and the law wherever they lead. If we find a reasonable cause to believe that there is a pattern or practice of constitutional or statutory violations, we will issue a public report setting forth our conclusions. And if we don't find such violations, we'll announce that result. And as always, we will not tolerate retaliation against community residents who participate in our investigation. In the event we find violations, we will seek to work cooperatively with the City of Lexington and the Lexington Police Department to reach an agreement on remedies. If we can't reach such an agreement, then the Justice Department is authorized to bring a civil lawsuit seeking injunctive relief to address violations. We look forward to working with city officials and the police department. We also look forward to working with the community as we carry out our work. We want the community to know that we see you, we hear you, and we will stand up for you. We have just briefed Lexington officials about the investigation and are pleased that they have pledged their cooperation. Since January of 2021, our investigations have included larger police departments such as Phoenix, Baltimore, Minneapolis, Louisville, and Memphis. And we've looked at mid-sized departments such as in Worcester, Massachusetts, and Trenton, New Jersey. The Lexington Police Department is one of the smallest we have investigated and one that represents most law enforcement agencies in our country. As I close, I want to note that our pattern and practice investigations have fueled significant reforms by law enforcement agencies. In Seattle, for example, the police department has reduced the use of force by 60%. Officers now use force in less than 1/4% of all events to which they respond. In Baltimore, the independent monitor found that officers are using force less often, and when they do use force, it is more likely to be consistent with police department policy and the law. And under the consent decree in Albuquerque, New Mexico, use of force declined by 25%, and violations of the force policy fell by half. Misconduct by law enforcement, excessive force, discrimination, illegal stops and searches, violations of First Amendment rights. All of this abuses and undermines public trust and harms racial minorities and other vulnerable populations. This discredits law enforcement. These problems, though, can be fixed. It is possible to restore public trust, to build a working relationship with the community, and to instill in departments a culture of non-discrimination and respect for constitutional rights. We are committed to working with officials in Lexington to achieve these goals. The Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department is pleased to conduct this investigation in partnership with the U.S. Attorney's Office. I'll now turn the floor over to my colleague.
Thank you, Assistant Attorney General Clark. and thank all of you for being here today for this important announcement. All of us here in Mississippi and throughout the nation want to feel safe in our homes and in public. But we want that safety to be obtained fairly and legally, not through illegal force and abuse of power. Make no mistake, good police work is done fairly and legally every day in many places in America and in Mississippi. The investigation we are launching here today will ensure that the residents of Lexington, Mississippi receive the same from their police force. The allegations of what has happened in Lexington are serious. I have been to Lexington myself and met with members of the community. A thorough investigation of the Lexington Police Department is necessary. We look forward to working with our colleagues from the Civil Rights Division to follow the facts wherever they may lead us, and to hearing more from the residents of Lexington as we conduct our investigation. This is the first day of that investigation, and we do not prejudge the outcome. But if our investigation determines that the Lexington Police Department has committed a pattern or practice of civil rights violations, I hope that the remedies that we reach will ensure that that police force can both fight crime, protect the civil rights of the community, and also serve as a good example for small, rural law enforcement agencies throughout Mississippi and the nation. Let me add that we maintain tools for all the residents of the Southern District of Mississippi to report allegations of civil rights violations. To make a report, please call the United States Attorney's Office Civil Rights Hotline at 601-973-2825. You can also make a report through a civil rights complaint form and email on our website. Thank you, Assistant Attorney General Clark, for your leadership and the Civil Rights Division for your work in this area. We look forward to our continued partnership, and thank you all for being here today.
You've outlined several allegations and also said there's a lot of publicly available information about the allegations. Can you speak to whether there's sort of one particular case that you're sort of zeroing in on, or a few different particular sort of allegations?
There is no single matter that prompted the investigation that we are opening today. We looked at a range of publicly available information. We took in reports and other information from stakeholders. That is the basis for the investigation that we are opening today, and we are at the beginning of that process.
And is there a sort of timeline or a window of time that you're looking at? Is it, how far back are you going?
We are pleased that local officials have pledged their cooperation. We expect that that will certainly help ensure that our investigation moves forward smoothly and expeditiously. We will look back at a number of years to understand what are the patterns and practices that have been in place. That historical look will help us identify whether or not there are violations today that need to be addressed.
Just what would be next steps in this? You do an investigation, let's find out that violations have taken place. Then how do you correct those, I guess, would be
This will be a transparent process. At the end of our investigation, we will make our findings public. If we uncover violations of the law and the Constitution, we will endeavor to work cooperatively with officials to negotiate reforms to address those violations. Those reforms may be set forth in a consent decree that will include an independent monitor and oversight by a court. However, if we uncover no violations, we will make that public. We will notify the justification and close the investigation.
Yes, ma'am. Could you tell us roughly how many complaints you received from residents there, and what were some of the specifics?
Well, I don't have a specific number. What I can tell you is that the allegations were credible and provide a sufficient basis for us opening a formal investigation, and that is what we're announcing today.
More than 5, more than 10?
Credible allegations.
Yes. What was maybe the ultimate push in like staying forward to this investigation? Was it just overwhelming comments from the public or like anything in particular?
The Civil Rights Division, along with our U.S. attorneys, are working across the country to promote fair and non-discriminatory constitutional policing. And so our investigation today reflects that commitment and reflects our commitment to ensuring constitutional policing in every corner of the country, including in small rural communities like Lexington, Mississippi.
So what accountability has to take place within the Lexington Police Department?
Can you repeat your question?
I was just talking about some of the accountability, as residents probably don't feel that within the Lexington Police Department as we move forward with the investigation.
Accountability will be an important area of focus. We will look at training materials, accountability systems, to the extent that they exist, and that will very much inform how we approach our investigation.
You were in Mississippi earlier this year, both in Lexington, Jackson. You met privately with different groups. Is this an outcome of the visits? You heard enough information, you were able to ascertain what issues and what needed to be done?
We believe very deeply in leaving no community behind in the course of doing our civil rights work. Listening sessions provide an opportunity for us to deepen connections with underserved areas. They open up avenues to hear from and learn from communities. And that desire to ensure that we're leaving no stone unturned, no community behind in promoting civil rights enforcement is a driving principle for all of the work that we do at the Civil Rights Division.
I was going to ask you, because you did mention it earlier about the Moon Squad and what you uncovered with that so far, and whether you're comfortable talking about that. And just hard to believe 2023, right, that we would be hearing these kinds of things. And obviously, these officers are already pleaded guilty, so it's not even an allegation.
Yeah.
So can you talk about the Moon Squad or God wants to?
Thank you. Obviously, what happened was extremely troubling. We can't say very much about it. The several officers have pled guilty and are still pending sentencing. But there's obviously a number of matters that we take very seriously in Rankin County, and look forward to continuing to work with our civil rights colleagues to ensure that we're protecting the civil rights of all Mississippians.
So the investigation is continuing at this point?
We're certainly taking in information from all sources and take seriously all information that we gather.
Last question? In back.
Did you speak with Mississippi Civil Rights Attorney Jill Jefferson? She was arrested while she was in Lexington, and we did a story with her. Was she one of the people that you spoke with, and talk to us about that?
We are aware of the arrest of Jill Jefferson and have taken information from a number of stakeholders in the Lexington community.
Sorry, I just don't remember my last question. Yeah, it does occur to me, especially when you talk about the economic disadvantages of this community, that this is not unrelated to the theft of millions of public assistance funds in Mississippi. A story that we still don't know a lot about. We still don't have a lot of answers. Can you tell us where that stands and, you know, who else might be held accountable for that theft?
I think unfortunately also that's a pending matter that we can't comment on publicly at this time. Obviously, there are public proceedings about it, but I don't think we can provide much more information about the current status.
It's been 4 years since this story kind of came out, since the arrests happened. Has that been how long you've been looking at it? Can you give us a sense for how long the feds have been looking at this, and when, if there's any timeline that we can expect with it?
It's obviously a very serious matter. And as you indicated, there have been a number of guilty pleas. And obviously, it's something that's being taken very seriously by my office and other law enforcement partners.
Anything
That's
else you would
awesome.
want
Thanks,
to-
guys.
Any final comments, Kathy? Any final comments?
We stand ready and prepared to ensure fair, non-discriminatory, and constitutional policing in our country.